our worship this morning. Come on, let's put our hands together. Every chain will break.
the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my. Come on, sing it out. You are good, good. Oh, you are good, good.
your way in our hearts this morning. God, we worship you. We lift up our hands in surrender. We ask that you move in this place, God. Move in our hearts. Come on, let's just thank him right now. Let's lift up our hands. God, we thank you.
This morning we have an incredible speaker with us this morning. Just did a great job last night. Just so if you haven't read his book, Eyes Wide Open, it's back there. He'll be signing books after the service today, just for a few minutes because we got obviously time constraints. And so, you know, if you want to get one of his books, but you'll be just blown away by his just rawness of the book, and not try to cover things up, cover problems up, but just got radically saved, and God's just using him all over the world. And we're just excited about having Brian again. So Brian, come on up and join us this morning. Yeah, amen.
Thank you.
We'll change sides here, see what happens.
Oh,
So we got you up before breakfast?
yeah.
So is it true that, you know, rock and rollers, they usually stay up all night long, and then, you know, was that been your pattern? Or?
Yep. I still do it. I don't even do drugs no more. I stay up. Sometimes I purposely book 5 a.m. flights just so I can stay up all night, and I like it. I'm a night owl.
Yeah. We had a friend of ours that was in that scene, and we'd go on motorcycle trips with him, and there's just no way you're getting him up past 9 o'clock in the morning. And when he'd say, well, I'll be ready at 9, and he'd come rolling out about 9:15 in his pajamas to start the day off. So Can you relate to all that, bro?
Oh yeah. I had to be here at 8:50, and I set the alarm for 8:30. I just pulled up, my hair's tied up. I'm just like, hey, God bless you.
And Janaea, his daughter's here with us too. She's not here this morning, but she'll be here in the second service. Was here last night. What a precious soul.
I raised a night owl.
Same thing.
She ain't making the service.
Well, he asked me if he could move. He said, "Hey, man, can we just move the service to 10:30 or something?" Jokingly, obviously.
I should put that in the contracts that I do. Huh? Can we just do the later service, and then we'll add a later one instead of the early one?
There you go. I never thought about that. I probably should have for you. Probably doing 11 and 1 probably would have been.
I probably wouldn't get invited anywhere or as much, but.
You know, I have a buddy of mine that was doing a 1 o'clock service, and he asked, because there were a lot of young people that came to us, he says, how many of you have been up less than an hour? And half the congregation raised their hand.
Yes. I'm old. I'm almost 50, you know. I'm right behind you. And so, but yeah, I like to sleep.
Yeah, good for you, man. So tell us about your group, how it started, and what, you know, your heavy metal. How did you guys get started? Your personal life. Give us a little indication of how that.
Oh man, I got bit by the heavy metal bug when I was 10 years old in Bakersfield, California, home of Buck Owens and country music. And man, my parents for some reason got me Back in Black AC/DC album 1980 for Christmas, and I put it on and I just heard Back in Black, and that was over. I was just like. How's that for a morning? And I was just like, I want to do that, man. And I would stare at Angus Young, the guitar player on the cover, just listening to their music. I was like, I want to do that. And so I was like, Mom, give me a guitar. Or actually, I was listening to the music, and I asked my dad, I said, Dad, I want to be a drummer. Because I heard a drum fill, and it sounded cool. And he was like, why don't you try another instrument? And I was like, I want to play drums. And he goes, think about how many pieces you have to carry if you're a drummer. And I was like, I was so lazy. I was like, oh. And he goes, how about something with just one piece, like a guitar? And I was like, okay. And so they got me an acoustic guitar, and I learned all the basics, you know, this little Mary Had a Little Lamb, all this stuff. And once I played them something, they're like, okay, you're dedicated. So they got me an electric. And that was it. And then Motley Crue, Rat, Judas Priest, Lord forgive me, Iron Maiden, Ozzy Osbourne was all that stuff. I just sucked it in and tried to play it on guitar. You know, it was my life. I would just hibernate in my room and learn the songs. But yeah.
So. How did you meet the band? How did the band get together?
I met the singer I didn't really meet him. I just saw him in elementary school. just real little kids, and he was like, I wasn't a cool kid at all, you know, but he was like really weird. He was just like, you know, Mr. Burns from The Simpsons? He looked like he could be his grandson. He just carried his books and he was... And I totally remember him back then. And then I met the bass player Fieldy in junior high. I was telling last night that, you know, you write on all your books in school and everything, and I wrote Motley Crue and everything, and I looked over at him. His name was Reggie, and I saw Duran Duran on his, and I was like, what? So I started like going, hey man, you need to get into metal, bro. And so he got into metal. And then the guitar player, James Schaefer, who's like my guitar twin, throughout the years, I met him, and he came over to my house, and by that time I was shredding on electric, you know, and he came over. I just met him, and he came over, and he was like, man, that is so awesome, because he had cut off the end of his finger on a lawnmower, or it was either a lawnmower or a motorcycle, I forget, but it's still gone to this day. It's like a big chunk. We call it the land of the lost. So he can't play like a normal guitar player. He has to bridge this finger because the meat right here is gone. And so he has to play like that. So, but he bought my electric, and I wanted this awesome Ibanez guitar. This new Ibanez was coming out, and he saw my electric, and he goes, "That's so cool." And I was like, "I'm gonna sell it to him." I go, "You want to buy it?" And I jacked up the price so I can get the Ibanez. And his dad paid for it.
We know you're an entrepreneur already, so that started back then, huh?
Yep. And so, yeah, we were just friends, and we started bands, and just little cheesy bands, garage bands that would jam out. And then I felt like I got them all into music. You know, I started the bass player. He played guitar, and he was like, check this out. And he was so bad that I was like, I go, you need to play bass. There's less strings, man. You could. So I felt like I got them all started. And so when we were 17, though, they got into the Red Hot Chili Peppers, those guys. And I was like, I don't like that. It's funk, whatever. I got no rhythm like that. I can just... These guys were like... And so they started a band without me. All of these guys that I grew up with and kind of inspired them to get going. And then they left me and went to L.A. and started a band. And so I was left kind of on my own. And what happened was, I had a girlfriend at the time. She broke my heart. I got suicidal. The first time I got suicidal. And I didn't share this last night, but those guys, they were my friends. So the first thing I did when my heart was broken, I went and visited them. I said, hey, how you guys, how's LA and everything? And they're like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, that Shauna, she broke my heart. She left me. And so they invited me to move in with them. And so I became their roadie. And that was it. And so and then we were in LA together. So, but a couple years later, they kicked out the singer. They got more back into metal because it was like the grunge music or movement was happening, you know. And so we kind of turned to that direction. And so that's when I could fit in, and I joined them and started Korn.
So how did the name come?
We were underneath Huntington Beach Pier in Orange County, and we were just like, what are we going to call ourselves? And our singer came up with it. There's a couple just stupid stories. We're thinking Children of the Corn, that horror movie, and whatever. And he's like, what if, because he was singing about child abuse and getting bullied and stuff. And he was like, what if like we had a logo like a little kid who's trying to spell corn, and it's K-O backwards R. And that's how the logo got. And it's a pretty famous logo now. And so, yeah, it was nuts how it just came about. And then we were like, okay, how do we get our band big? We're in LA, and so we just printed stickers and shirts, and we like plastered thousands of stickers everywhere, and stop signs, like all in our hometown. Anything we could do. We were like, okay, let's go play LA. We would play a gig, and then we would say, okay, how do we fill up the club? And we lived in Orange County, so we're like, let's rent a school bus, put a keg of beer in the back, charge people like $4 or whatever. And so we bust our friends and just people that the word got around, and we would show up to clubs, and that's how we got the record companies' ears, you know. And they were coming out, and we got a couple record companies looking at us. We got signed, went to the record studio, and just went on the road.
So that's when the upward rise as far as success goes and all that kind of stuff started right then. So you guys, I mean, for you guys, the pinnacle of success. I mean, you're one of the biggest bands in the world, right? I mean, as far as
I mean, there's a lot bigger than us, but like, yeah, we made almost 40 million records sold over
40 million,
23 years in the, almost 24 years in the business. Corn.
Wow.
I took 8 years off, but
yeah. Let's get into that part. So, you're at the pit, the height of everything, and yet life is kind of spiraling out of control. Where did the drugs start? The alcohol, that kind of stuff start?
Yeah, it's basically what rock music is, or any music. Okay, you have this passion, and it's in your heart, and you're like to create music and to start a band, and you get your sound down in a recording, and you put it out and with CDs back then, or tapes back then, and everything. Now it's MP3s and no one buys them. But thanks Spotify. But so that's the passion, right? That's the cool part. That's the like, oh, I love music. And then when you get a record deal, you find out that you go and create this thing, this album, and then it's like, okay, go work it. And so they put you on a bus, and you just go out all over the place, and you do the same thing every day. You play the same songs, and it's exciting at first. But when you get there, you're just like, oh, wow. You feel like you're in a carnival almost, because you're a different city every day. You set up your show, do your little dance, and then leave to the next city. So the crowd, the fans make it fun, but sometimes you feel like, oh my gosh, this is the same day as yesterday, and it's like that's how people get into drugs. I think it's because it's a lot of waiting around for musicians, because you hire a road crew, they do all the stuff, and you're just basically sitting there waiting. We didn't have iPhones back then, It's like, so it was just like, drugs and everything, and I wasn't, I dabbled with weed, and when I was a kid and everything, and but I got into a little bit harder drugs. Methamphetamines I started messing with right when Korn started, and so that was such a nasty drug that when we went on the road, we were just kind of like, let's try to be functioning. We gotta build this band. This is our band. This is our everything. And so we were like, we would just drink a lot and then do some coke, but we would never touch heroin, and so. But, once we got, the second record came out, went number 3 on Billboard, we started getting played on MTV in the middle of the night and everything. They were scared to touch us because we were so weird. But our third record came out, and it became more mainstream, a little bit more mainstream, and that's when it exploded. And so drug dealers would show up to our concerts. I mean, we had doctors that would write us prescriptions of Vicodin, Xanax, anything. And it was nuts. We even had I remember the surgeon was there after the show, and he was like, yeah, I got to work at 9 a.m, and he's breaking out like coke for everybody. And it was just like the weirdest life, where there was cops, and they'd be like, okay, shut the door if you guys are going to do coke. And we could do anything we wanted. It was really crazy. And, we're just kid in a candy store, but, too much candy will make you sick.
Yeah. So how bad did it get? What was you guys... you obviously got out of control at some point, and
yeah, throughout the years, the drugs, the drinking and everything, and I just felt empty inside, and I was never myself. I just never looked in the mirror and said, I like this guy, So it was, even when I had my child, my daughter, I was married, but my wife, my ex-wife came from alcoholics and drugs in her family and all that stuff. So she was a mess like me, but we were trying to be sober and trying to, okay, let's have a good family, but then we would always go back. And so you guys know, some of you guys just have struggled with the same thing, and and the money was there, so drugs there's nothing that would stop us, except our hearts and wanting to be good, but we just couldn't do it. And so methamphetamine crept back in, and my wife got hooked on it when I was on tour with Metallica in 2000. It was 2000, and I had my friend at that time. We lived in Huntington Beach, California. My friend called me and said, "There's some skinheads that are trying to sell some articles that he saw displayed in my house, like a solid gold Korn necklace that a record company gave me from Australia. All this stuff, they're hawking it." And so I called home, and I was like, what the, who's in our house? They're trying to hawk, that's my friend, he owns the pawn shop. And she's like, no one's doing that, you guys are crazy. And so what I did was I sent my friend to our house. My baby was there. It was just chaos. And my baby was left with a 17-year-old girl who I didn't know, and my ex-wife and a bunch of skinheads that she was, these gang member dudes, they were gone. And so I flew home, I grabbed the kid, and I took her out on the road. And I got sober for 4 months, and that was a long time for me. And so I felt so depressed when I was sober. I was working out and I was trying to be healthy, and that was like my new high, you know, like, and it felt good at first, but then I just never felt like I loved myself, you know. I wanted to cover up with the stuff because I didn't like me, you know. And so after that 4 months, I fell back into drinking. I fell back into doing pills and coke and everything, and I swore I wouldn't do meth because I thought my ex-wife was just a scumbag and that I wanted to kill those skinheads that took her away, because she left. I got full custody of our daughter and everything, but I slipped back into meth at that time, and I started doing. That was my rock bottom. That was the long answer.
Okay, so let's get into now we got the history. Let's get into what was that day what's the day that Jesus came and you turned? I mean, was it a progression or was it a one-time event? What happened to you? I mean,
2003 when I started doing the meth, I did it for like a couple weekends in a row, and I wasn't supposed to do that because I had a tour coming up with Ozzy, and Ozzy, like, we toured with him in '95, so this was 2004, like, you know, years later, and I'm just like, Ozzy. I still get like butterflies with Ozzy, you know. He just played the other day at the Eclipse, sang "Bark at the Moon" when the Eclipse went, like, full. It was crazy. My friend went, I didn't go, but so the tour came, and meth, when you do meth, you need to sleep when you're done because it's just jacked up. And so the tour was like 5 days away, and I'm like strung out on meth. I'm like, I have no time to recover. So I grabbed an 8-ball and I hit the road with Ozzy. That tour, I never enjoyed Ozzy. I was in the back of my bus. We had so much money at that point. We had 5 tour buses. I had my own house and on the road with wheels, and I had a bodyguard, and he would just like come knock on the door. You okay? Yeah, leave me alone. And I was in there doing meth all day for the whole tour. That turned into 2004. And by 2004, I started trying to get a little bit of help. You know, I didn't tell any of my friends. I was a master at hiding, or no one confronted me. You know, they knew something was going on. But yeah, I tried to go to an outpatient rehab place to get off it, and it didn't work. And so these people I was doing real estate with, because I love to see money grow. You know, and so I just love to invest. I had stocks. I was like this methamphetamine tweaker that was like a good businessman, you know. And so these guys, where I lived, I had moved back to Bakersfield, where corn started, where we all grew up. I moved back there, and these guys asked me to go into business with them, and they were doing real estate. And that's how I got into real estate earlier. We were talking last night, and so these guys were Christians, and they ended up inviting me to church. And I did not like Christians because I thought it was like Ned Flanders, you know, from The Simpsons. I thought Christians, they're so annoying, you know. They're just so happy, and that's all you saw in the media like that. Not Christians nowadays, but back then it was like, you know, you're drunk at home flipping through the channels, and that weird Christian channel comes on. They're in the weird chairs and the weird hair and everything. And you're just like, what the? And so that's all I knew. But this guy's he's like, you know, you got to come here, man. I went there, and there was these, like, it was rough looking at this church. I mean, there was this a lot of Hispanic, like, dudes with tattoos all over. And I was like, this looks more sketchy than a Korn concert. And they were telling me that they were like recovering addicts, gang members, ex-prostitutes, all this. And I was like, what? I was thinking Ned Flanders. This didn't connect with Ned Flanders. And so the pastor got up. You remind me a lot of him, you know, the good qualities of him. And And he was just a regular guy, not holier than thou, just like breaking it down and just loving people. And he just got up there and he goes, I used to be an alcoholic. One day I got physical with my wife. I threw her against the wall and I messed up her back where she could have been really like paralyzed in a way, and she couldn't move. And he was like, God, he grew up Christian, and he ran away from it. But he got down on his knees and said, Jesus, if you make my life better and make my marriage better, I will give you my life. I will give you my life. And right then I was in his church, and he had like 10,000 members. Wow. But it didn't affect him. I could tell he was just like a humble dude. And so I was like, this guy either has the answer for life, or he's like a brainwashing all these people. And so, but I was like, I'm going to try it. And I raised my hand at the end of the service. I asked Christ inside, and I went home. I started praying, Jesus, if you're real, come inside of my life and take these drugs from me. I just want to get off drugs. That's all I wanted from God. And I had no plans to surrender my life and give my life to Jesus. I was just like, I was on meth and I needed help, And so, after church, I had this drug room. It was my master bedroom closet. And I had my meth all out on this like piece of wood on top, and I brought it down and I was just like chopping it up. And I just stopped after I rolled it up. I said, Lord, I want to quit this. My daughter deserves better than this. Please take these drugs from me. And I just said, amen. I just snorted the line because I was an addict, And so a little bit after that, I had an encounter with God. I kept going to church, and I kept talking to people, even though I was on drugs, because the pastor said, bring all your junk to Jesus. Who cares? He'll take it from you. You don't have to step into my church and be perfect. He was just so cool, And so I kept going to church. I would be high on meth. I'd go to church, and people were trying to, I started talking to some friends, and next thing you know, I was thumbing through the Bible and everything, and every time I'd flip the page, it was like talking to me. It'd say something that would touch me, and I'm just like, whoa. And then when I would go off and do meth again, I would put the Bible in the drawer because I thought that was what was talking to me, It was really, I was spun out, But I had an encounter one day. I was like, how do I know for sure it's real? And it was my last day on methamphetamines, and I just felt this. I felt this presence walk into the room, and it was from another dimension. It was like pure life, and I knew it was God, but I didn't see anything or anyone. And I was looking for an angel. Jesus, I was just like, what is this? And it says in Moses' day in Exodus, it says that he asked God, he said, show me your glory. And the Lord said, I will let all my goodness pass before you. That's what I felt. I felt nothing but goodness in the spiritual realm pass around me. And I was just like, ugh. I was instantly, it was like he dropped an invisible, better high in an invisible world that I was instantly addicted to right there. And I was like, what is that? And I knew it was God, so I threw away the drugs the next day, and I've been chasing him for 12 years.
So then, of course, once you got saved, all your problems straightened out, perfection, you lived a life of perfection from that point forward with no problems.
Exactly.
Because I think
that's the gospel.
But I do think that, and you got to read his book, but I do think that that's kind of the impression that people get is somehow your problems are all going to go away. But I don't think that's true. Everybody has problems. I think Jesus just helps us deal with those problems because he's the overcomer in our life. So talk just a little bit. I know your daughter went through some stuff and different things.
Yeah, I mean, it was such bliss for like 6 months. I was just like, oh. Every time worship came on, it was like tears. Like God was just all over me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, why would anybody do drugs or drink? This is the best ever. And so I didn't want to touch anything that would maybe make that feeling leave, because God was so real. And so I stopped, like, I had an email account, and I was getting like these porno like emails every day, and I wouldn't even look at them anymore. Then after a month, I was like, I should probably change my email address because they kept coming in. And so I was like, okay, no more porn, none of that. No more drinking, of course, none of that. And okay, I'm going to stop. Okay, no more cussing. I'm never going to cuss again. We'll talk about that later.
How'd that work out for you?
We'll talk about that later. Second service could probably handle the answer to that. No, I'm just joking.
You've never been a pastor? No, I'm just kidding.
So it was just like everything, and then I started learning more, and I was always on fire, but I heard these prayers like, ask God for more faith, and I was like, God, I want more faith. Give me faith. Give me the gift of faith. And then all of a sudden, problems. How do you grow in faith? Walking through problems, right? And so all these bombs started dropping. Like, I remember with about 2 or 3 years after Corn, I had invested in some shady guys, businesses and everything. I lost everything by 4 years after I left Corn. It started 2 years, and then it was all gone. And I was in bankruptcy court getting accused of fraud in federal court on a stand because I had been so stupid with my money. And it was like, I love Jesus, I didn't do anything, Judge. What the heck? It was crazy. I felt like Paul, like on the stand, and just a lot of crazy stuff, emotional things. After the 6 months of bliss, a lot of depression came back, and I was like, Lord, if you don't heal me of my depression, I'm going to go back on Celexa, And he never did. Honestly, he never healed me of my depression, and I take a non-narcotic mild depression. Like, some of that stuff's good for you if you suffer with depression. And so, I battled that. And then my daughter, she turned 12, and 13 and 14 came, and then one horn. And then the other one, I can't say that when she's here. That's only this.
Don't anybody say anything when she comes next service either.
But her mom, it was more from pain because her mom she left her life, and so it was me and her. And so emotionally unstable dad loves Jesus with all his heart, but man, I had just a side that it wasn't miraculous, like boom, you're like, he had to work some stuff out in me. And she saw a lot of ugly things, but I never went back to the drinking or the drugs. I didn't know how to function emotionally, and so I did everything I could. I went and got like demons cast out of me. I had counseling. I did everything. I faced every fear. I faced every ugly about myself. One time I went into the mountains and confessed every dark secret behind the scenes. I wanted every dark secret out, and these people were like, this couple was like 70, 72, and they were just like, anything I could to get free, I was on a mission. Those poor people, God help them. But so yeah, and then I lost my house in 2009. I lost 3 vehicles. I lost 2 vans who were involved in a business. I watched them get repossessed in front of my house. I lost my house and my BMW with 22-inch rims. Our guys love our cars.
Yeah, tell them what kind of car you're driving now. I can't believe it.
Prius.
I don't even believe it.
For real,
I don't know, bro. It's just, I liked you up until that point last night.
But, okay, I'm going to redeem myself. Okay, redeem yourself. I got a Tesla ordered. But I'm so cheap, I waited till the 30 grand one came out. Those 100,000 ones, nah. The cheaper one's out now, so it's on order. I'll get it in like 2 years. So, but so I lost all that stuff and just trials, and I'm like, and I would go through so many hard things, and I'm like, Lord, you said this. You said if we give, it'll be given to us, and I'm broke, and my house is gone. What are you going to do? Where are you? I thought you took care of us. And then I would thumb through the Bible, and it would say, that scripture, it says, if you have food and clothing, be content with that. And I'm like, dang it! Give me another one! And it was like God was going, you got me. You don't have much right now, but you have me. Am I enough? And I was like, but I had learned that a lot of ministers, like the Joyce Meyers and all that, I read their stories, and they went through hell before they got used by God. And so that comforted me. I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be going through hell, And so, because there's a time that you get, there's a time of humbling and there's a time of exaltation, and he was going to exalt me in his way and his time. So I clung on, and I got through it, and he's been so good, man.
There's calling and separation, you know, and I believe you have a call in your life. We've been talking about it a little bit, but so I think the controversial Christian thing now is you went back to corn, and reading your book, you had an experience with God. And I think people need to hear that. I think the reason why you went back to corn, because you were gone for 8 years. Let's wrap this up and talk about that just a little bit. Why you went back, and tell them about that experience you had.
Yeah, some people think that I went back for money and everything, but they don't realize I owned all these songs, and I could sell my catalog at any point, you know, and totally get out of any hole I was in, you know. And so I wasn't going to do that with the bankruptcy and stuff, because first of all, I didn't understand it, but second of all, like, you don't just sell your music for a low amount because it's stupid. But I had that out, you know. And so, but the thing was, I was with my daughter, and when she was going through her stuff in 13, 14, she started getting into rock music. Blink-182 was her favorite band. And then after that was like, she liked like Evanescence and Stained and some of these rock bands that were Chevelle. And so she had me take her to a show. I went with the band POD. I rode on their bus, and we would just watch the show. And, you know, I think Five Finger Death Punch, the band Five Finger Death Punch was playing. They're like, and I remember looking at the crowd, and I felt like the Lord was saying, see all these people? These are my people, and I want them. And I felt that, and I started, during Five Finger Death Punch, I'm getting emotional, and I'm just like, it had to be God, you know? And so I didn't know what it meant, but Korn was playing that night. They asked me to play one song. I played one song with them, and the singer broke down in tears, and he had to stop the concert and he grabbed me, and he told me after the show, he said, if we never have anything together again, thank you for giving me this one last night. Because and that was it. And it was so emotional. My dad was in tears the next day because the rock sites covered it, and it was everywhere, and so... And the next thing you know, they asked me to join the band again, and I initially said no, but God kept tugging on my heart, and I remember that thing that happened at the concert, and I talked to my daughter about it. I was like, what do you think about that? And I talked to some, you know, pastors and friends that there's 3 people that I really, really trusted, and I said, Lord, I need some wisdom from them. If there's one of them that says they don't feel, you know, if they give me some reason to say no, then I'm not doing it. It's just because I had heard that God had done that miraculously before with people. And so, yeah, he confirmed it in me through others, through my daughter, family, and that was it. And I went back, and Korn, you got to realize Korn's like, it's not, I mean, just go watch like these sitcoms on ABC, CBS, and, you know, the world is crazy. Korn is like mainly, our singer sings about pain. And, you know, and anger, and just, you know, some of the songs that were pretty crazy, where he's singing about killing his stepmom back in the day and stuff, like, we don't even play those songs. You know, we're different people. We have like hundreds of songs, and so there's a big catalog, and so it's not that bad. You know, people think, oh, evil rock band, you know, but those people are hurting in the crowd. Like, a lot of them are hurting. And they were just like I was before I left. So what better place to be? It makes sense. I mean, if you just think about Jesus, it makes sense.
I think Jesus was more, well, I don't think, I know. He's more comfortable amongst the crowd than he was the temple. I mean, you don't ever have him fashioning a whip and start beating people in the crowd. It was always the temple that he did that stuff.
He did that in the religious setting. Like, but, you know, the F word's my singer's favorite word. That's what I think people can't get over that hurdle. But he's just like, effing this, how you effing doing? He just loves that word. So that's the worst. That's as bad as it gets.
And then you're out praying for the sick afterwards and praying for people.
Yeah. Like, okay, so we used to have these bodyguards, mean-looking dudes. In the 90s, we'd send them out and say, go get us the chicks, you know, bring the girls backstage. So when I rejoined the band, I got these guys, and I'm like, okay, let's pray to God, ask him who he wants to touch tonight. And so we go out and we gather like 30, 40 people. Yeah, it's so cool. Only God can do that, you know? And so I've seen miracles, man. This one couple lost their baby after tonsils taken out. Their 4-year-old died. We prayed for them. They got pregnant. The next week they're pregnant. They have a new baby right now. A lot of people giving their lives to the Lord. Just all kinds of cool stuff, man. Have this one guy was like, I was preaching, I was telling my story, and he's like, man, what is this? Where's the strip club? And I had my friend there, and so I was really brave. And my friend was a faith healer, and he was like, he travels the world, and he has a gift of healing. And so we were like, anybody have pain in their body? And that same dude goes, man, I broke my back at your concert 10 years ago. And my friend's so bold, he had some other fans. He said, come here, I'm going to show you this is not me, it's Jesus. He goes, put your hands on this kid. And he says, repeat after me. In Jesus' name, I take authority over this right here, and I command in Jesus' name healing. And the dude that was yelling for a strip club starts tearing up, and he's like, oh my effing God. Oh my. And he touches his toes for the first time in 10 years. And I swear, he looked at me, he goes, this stuff's real. And I said, this is not popular. And I'm out here doing this every night. Do you think I would be doing this every night if it wasn't real? This is the most realest thing I've ever experienced. She goes, my mom's been telling me about God my whole life. I thought it was just all BS. So he gave his life to the Lord.
Wow, that's amazing.
Oh, that's fun.
I love it.